I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night.
As we were discussing skin, I told you that if we could remove the skin from our body and extended it, it could be like an enormous beach towel, 1.80 square meters. Wow! Remember, it's the first line of defense from external factors as bacteria, pathogens, and it also prevents water loss. Remember, it's water resistant thanks to the fact that our skin is covered by a kind of waxy layer produced by the epidermis that prevents water loss. My favorite one, it keeps our extra kilos in secret because skin itself weighs between 3 and 4 kilos. Good. And we got a feeling thanks to it. Remember that we discussed that our skin is composed by various layers, okay? Though we are going to discuss 3 main layers, okay? Here you can see, as I was telling you, you can see the upper layer, that is the epidermis, with very thin and different layers inside it, and beneath this you can see the mesodermis, okay? This is a diagram of the skin structure. I guess you can differentiate 3 different layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, okay? In the case of the epidermis, it is made up of 5 different layers, but I'm interested only in the cornified layer and the basal layer. In the case of the basal layer, you have to remember that this is the deepest layer. It's only 1 cell thick, and it is made of the skin stem cells that are called keratinocytes that produce keratin. This basal layer is also composed by melanocytes that produce melanin. These cells divide by mitosis and migrate to the surface. On their way to the surface, they die and they are filled up with keratin. On top of this basal layer, we can find the cornified layer, that is the top layer. Remember, it's hard and waterproofed because it is covered by this waxy cuticle that we have on top. Remember that all the cells there are these basal layer cells that migrate and die, so all the cells are dead. And remember that these dead cells are worn away and replaced every 28 days, okay? The most interesting layer is the dermis. This is where all the activity happens. In the dermis, there are a lot of structures that we need to recognize. First of all, the dermis is made up of connective tissues plus elastic fibers like collagen and elastin. This gives our skin flexibility. Remember that the ability of produce collagen and elastin is reduced with the years. That's why wrinkles start appearing. Okay? You can also see there sweat glands. Sweat is super connected to the homeostasis process because sweat is connected to temperature control. when our body is hot, we sweat, and this water that comes out covers the whole surface. So when wind blows and removes this, let's say when it cools down, this water is when our skin gets cooler. Okay? What else can we see there? We can see sebaceous glands. Remember that these glands are the ones that are responsible for producing sebum that keeps the skin and the hair from dying out. And this sebum also protects our skin from the entrance of certain bacteria and certain pathogens. Okay? As skin is connected, as I told you before, with temperature control, in this layer we can see a lot of capillaries. Yes, a lot of blood vessels. This layer also contains different nerve endings. For example, this nerve ending that is connected to receiving information about temperature or receiving information about pressure or about touching. These nerves are directly connected to the brain. And last but not the least, in this layer we can see a kind of invagination from the epidermis that forms the hair follicle where our hairs grow. Okay? And the third layer, that is called the hypodermis, in fact is a layer of adipose tissue. Do you remember that we discussed that sometimes lipids, when they are not used, are stored in adipocytes under our skin, and this layer of lipids also protects our body and is in charge of the insulation process. That's why some girls that suffer from anorexia and that are very skinny, they are always cold because they don't have this adipose layer to protect them from the variations of temperature. You see, the differences in the skin color is the result of the differences in the quantity of melanin that our skin produces and how this melanin is arranged in the keratinocytes. Remember that melanin is the substance that protects us from the UV rays. So in countries that are closer to the equator, where sun radiation is really strong, skin will have more melanin, so skins will be darker, while people living in Norway or Sweden will have less melanin as the action of the sun is not so strong, so they will have lighter skin. Do you know that in people, particularly in people with light skin, melanin can accumulate, forming spots or freckles that we like a lot, okay? Remember that when people have a total lack of melanin in the skin, they are called albins, okay? Remember that they have very light skin, very light eyes and hair, and they don't tolerate the rays of the sun. Well, this is the part when we discuss Harry Potter's idea of true wizards and muggles, okay? You see, when we talk about the skin, we brunettes are the true wizards because our hair is pure melanin. In the case of blonde and red-haired girls and boys, well, you are muggles because your melanin is mixed with sulfur in the case of blonde people and with iron in the case of red-haired people. So you see, true muggles rule, okay? When we get old, melanocytes lose the enzyme necessary to produce melanin and the hair goes gray. Thanks God for dying, okay? Nails on the fingers and toes are also made of epidermal cells that are filled with keratin that makes it hard. And remember that the function of the nail is to protect your fingers from injury and to be able to scratch when it itches. Here we are with the functions of the skin. The first function is protection. Yes, remember that these skin, these layers, are the first defense against infection because it prevents the action of pathogens and bacteria or anything from the external environment. It also prevents water for leaving our system. Remember that for all the organisms, water is essential, okay? As we are not plants, our cells don't need the energy of the sun. So, thanks God, melanin protects us from the UV rays, okay? Due to all the nerve endings that our mesodermis or dermis contain, we have a lot of information of what is going on in the environment. This is connected to the sensitivity, one of the functions that makes us living beings, okay? We receive information about temperature, about touch, about pressure, vibration, injuries, etc. Okay? As we have this skin as a barrier to prevent water loss, another function of the skin is the control of the evaporation. This barrier also is also in charge of water resistance. Remember that as our skin is covered by this sebum released by the sebaceous glands, all the nutrients of the skins are not washed out of our body. Take care when you take a shower not to use extremely hot water, and showers have to be short, yeah, for this water not to wash away all this oily layer, okay? Another function of the skin is storage, because it stores lipids in the hypodermics and water in all the cells. Now we are going to talk about function number 3, that is heat regulation, okay? Because this is how skin collaborates with homeostasis. Remember that we are really safe, yeah? All our body is covered with the skin, yes? This is a barrier that prevents the entrance of germs, pathogens, bacteria, etc. And in every other part of the body where there's no skin, we have a kind of mucus that acts as a barrier. For example, in our eyes, in our mouth, in our genitals, okay? Other parts that are connected to the environment, like the respiratory system, are also protected because they are covered by mucus plus cilia in all the lining. Remember that cilia flicks every moment, carrying all the bacteria and germs surrounded by mucus away from the lung. In the case, suppose some bacteria survived mucus and the fence is here in the digestive system, when they get to the stomach and intestines, remember that, for example, in the case of the stomach, the pH is 2, an acidic condition to kill every virus, microorganism, anything that can harm us, okay? Our blood is full of white blood cells, lymphocytes and phagocytes that will attack the intruders. Remember that spleen and thymus are the ones in charge of the production and maturation of these lymphocytes, and in the lymph nodes all along the lymphatic system, lymphocytes are stored waiting for lymph to arrive carrying bacteria to be destroyed. Okay? Let's talk now a bit about one of the main functions of the skin, that is temperature control. And of course, I'm going to talk about Titanic. Poor Jack, when they fell from the broken boat, he was submerged into this gelid water of the Atlantic Ocean, while Buster, Carl, Kate was on top of the table without letting him climb up. Okay? Well, do you know that our core temperature is around 35.8 centidegrees up to 37.7 centidegrees. This is considered normal core temperature. But poor Jack, after some minutes in this freezing water, his body temperature started to go down. When the temperature reached 31 centidegrees, he started feeling dizzy, sleepy, and when his body temperature fell below 30 centidegrees, there was a heart failure and poor Jack died. Some people believed that if Jack had moved in the water trying to swim, he would have kept his warm temperature. But it's just the opposite. When you move and you produce heat in a medium that is super cold, your heat diffuses out between 35 and 50% faster. So if people in this cold water had swum, they would have probably died before that. That's why most of the people on the boats, most of the survivors on the boats of the Carpathia, that was the boat that rescued the people who survived Titanic, most of them were wet and, of course, cold. And some of them died because of the loss of temperature under these windy conditions, okay? So from the Titanic incident and on, the rescue boats must be enclosed, yeah, for wind not to get to these wet people. As we have been discussing previously, the normal human body temperature varies between 35.8 and 37.8 centidegrees. This is what we call core temperature. This is the temperature inside our body, independent of the changes of the temperature of the environment. Normally, we can lose heat by different procedures. Let's name 4. We can say that our body loses heat by conduction, convection, radiation, and evaporation. What is conduction? Do you remember these moments when mommy serves you a cup of tea and tea is too hot for you to drink, and mommy, using a cold, empty cup, transpasses the hot tea into the empty mug, then she puts the now empty mug under the tap water to cool it down, and then she passes the hot tea to the cold water. Well, this is losing heat because of conduction. Yes, this is the diffusion of heat between different substances. In the case of convection, you know that when we heat molecules, they lose weight, so hot molecules tend to go up. That's why, for example, when you have a house with 2 floors and you turn on the heater in the ground floor, heat tends to go upstairs, okay? Radiation is how the sun or the earth loses heat to the atmosphere, okay? And evaporation is what I was telling you about how we lose heat when we sweat, yeah? Okay? So the thing is not how we lose heat, the thing is how we gain heat, okay? We have an internal process of gaining heat that is called respiration. Yes? Remember that respiration is the breaking down of food molecules in the cell with the participation of the oxygen that generates energy plus carbon dioxide plus water. This energy, some of it is lost as heat. Yeah, so if we have respiration processes going on in our cells, then we will have heat in our body. We can also gain heat from the surroundings. For example, the light of the sun, or, I don't know, putting on extra clothes, okay? Well, the idea is that our temperature has to be in the perfect balance. Do you remember the idea of homeostasis? Okay? If it's not in the perfect balance, our cells may overcool or overheat. Okay? To prevent overcooling, there are a lot of processes that go on in our body, namely 4. The first one is vasoconstriction. All these capillaries that are in our dermis constrict. This means they reduce their lumen and they separate from the upper layer, the epidermis. This is to prevent the heat to get to the surface, okay? Of course, to prevent overcooling, we stop sweating because you know, no sweating, no heat loss. We start shivering. Shivering is produced when our muscles start trembling to generate heat, because, to move our muscles, we need energy, and for this energy, we need respiration. So shivering will improve the rate of respiration to generate heat. Of course, we can modify the temperature of our body by exercising or by adding extra clothes, okay? When we are in a very extremely hot environment, two things happen. First of all, we sweat like pigs, okay? Remember that when we sweat, the water covers the surface of our skin, and when the wind evaporates this water, it takes away the heat and instantly cools down our body, okay? And other thing that happens is that the capillaries in the dermis, they dilate. This means they become bigger for blood to circulate faster, and they get closer to the surface of the skin for heat to diffuse out. This is a picture of these two processes I was explaining to you to prevent overcooling and overheating. And here you can see how when the body is too cold, we stop sweating, for heat not to evaporate. Capillaries in the dermis get narrow, they constrict for blood not to flow for them, and in this way not to lose heat to the environment. We start shivering, and as you can see here, the muscles that are attached to the hair follicles, they contract, and the hairs pull up, okay? What is that? When the hairs are up, they create a kind of layer that traps the warm air next to the skin and insulates it, okay? This is why you get goosebumps, okay? But when the body is too hot to prevent overheating, these muscles, these erector muscles, relax, so the hairs flatten, and the skin traps less air. We produce, the sweat glands produce water, and when it gets to the surface, the wind. According to the way organisms regulate their temperature, they are divided into poikilothermic or homeothermic. Poikilothermic means that they regulate their temperature according to the environment where they are. For example, if they are cold, they get under the sun, and if they are hot, they look for shade. The problem is that if their body temperature falls, their vital chemistry slows down, and they get more vulnerable to predators. Well, we are not poikilothermic, we are homeothermic. This means that our core temperature remains the same, but there is a price we have to pay, and this price is that we have to eat. We need to have an intake of food to keep our temperature in the same position, okay? All right. In the brain, temperature regulation is a function regulated by the brain. It's totally involuntary in our case. The hypothalamus that is here, is the thermoregulatory center. Yes, and it has two functions. One function is to monitor the temperature of the blood. Remember that I told you that along all the arteries and all the veins and the capillaries, there are nervous sensors that inform the brain not only about the composition of the blood at that moment, but also of the temperature of our body. The hypothalamus also receives the information from all the receptors that are in the dermis that send the information about temperature. Okay, what is negative feedback? This means that our body does not prepare beforehand to any problem it may face. The idea is that when the body receives information from the sensors all over the body, it generates an outgoing impulse that counteracts the effects which produced the incoming impulse. This means when the sensors send the hypothalamus information, supposedly, that the temperature outside is up, is high, and the body is overheating, then the brain reacts by sending an impulse to the skin for all these processes of vasodilation and sweating to start. Yes, in this way, the body, in a way, saves energy. As you can see, the main idea of homeostasis is maintaining the internal environment within narrow limits. All the action of all the systems in our body is to keep the cell in the perfect balance. Yes, in this case, for homeostasis, we have the cooperation of the blood, the respiratory system, skin, and kidneys. Well, people, I hope this explanation will help you to revise for the test and to get extremely good marks on Monday. Any doubts you may have, you can find me and leave a message in my Facebook page or write to me to my email esdelrio_andrea@yahoo.com. See you.